My first retail and e-commerce business was all built around sustainability. It was what I called back then an eco baby boutique. And every time that I sent out a parcel, because e-commerce is where we started, so we had an e-commerce business before we opened our retail stores, but every time I sent out one of those parcels, I would cringe inside because sending a plastic bag out with an eco-friendly product just was so incongruent. It didn't work with the brand and it didn't work with my values. But then on the flip side, sending things out in a box that had been recycled was completely in line with the ethos, but it didn't have that premium brand feeling. So every time a parcel went out, there was always that kind of feeling that something wasn't quite right. Now, I don't have the eco baby business anymore, but as I'm about to launch my new e-commerce brand Posh Greys, which is luxury greyhound coats, packaging and e-commerce satchels is so on my mind because it is a premium brand. And I want that premium brand feel for the customer when the parcel arrives, but I don't want to be hurting the environment while I'm doing that. So when I stumbled across Kate and Bex from the Better Packaging Company, when I was speaking at Inside Retail Live, I chatted to them for ages about the product and their journey, and I just knew that I had to spread this message for them, and I wanted them to share their journey as well. So I invited them both on the show to talk about how they created compostable retail satchels for e-commerce brands, amongst a bunch of other things. Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, where I, Selena Knight, share strategies, interview retail revolutionaries, and delve into the minds of e-commerce experts to help you grow a profitable, independent retail or e-commerce business. If you're stuck in a rut, or if you feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've overachieved all of the things that you've set out to and are wondering what to do next, or how do I even make this better? I know that you're going to love today's episode. If you're stuck in a rut, feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've achieved all of the things that you set out to and are wondering what next, or how do I even make this better, then I know that you're going to love today's episode. Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. At the moment, consumers are very, very aware of what they're buying. And to be honest, in 2019, we saw this huge rise of consumer expectations around sustainability. And I always have a bit of a laugh because I was in the sustainability business over a decade ago before it was a buzzword. So it's really interesting to see how the economy and consumers in general are expecting more from businesses in regards to sustainability. And as retailers, it's often really difficult to know where do you start, because becoming a sustainable business could be a very, very expensive exercise. So today I have on Kate and Rebecca from the Better Packaging Company, and we're going to talk about how you can move your business towards sustainability in just a little small way, because every little bit helps. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, Selena.
Hi, thanks for having us.
I wish you guys were around when I had my business all those years ago, because we were an eco-friendly business and it used to pain us to put stuff into plastic satchels. Where possible, we would try and reuse boxes, but you always have that expectation of that's not in line necessarily with your brand. Like you're trying to be a more premium brand and it feels a little bit off-brand to be sending things out in recycled boxes. So I wish you guys were around then, but you're around now. So tell us, how did the Better Packaging Company get started?
Kate and I were working in the e-commerce industry. So we were working together for a tech startup company, Starship It, which facilitates transaction of millions of e-commerce orders online. And it was there that we saw that extraordinary growth of e-commerce. It's about 50% every 2 years, I believe. E-commerce is growing.
Wow.
With over 85 billion parcels sent worldwide. And we just realised that with that extraordinary growth, there was an enormous amount of additional packaging waste out there. And both of us being quite passionate about the environment and greenies at heart, felt just horrified to see all of that additional waste and thought there must be a better way. So
And I was going to say, up until recently, certainly here in Australia, up until maybe only 18 months ago, 2 years ago, there wasn't the option to recycle soft plastics, whereas now we can take soft plastics to the grocery store to be recycled. That option wasn't available, but you guys, it's not even about having a plastic that needs to be recycled, is it?
No, it isn't. One of the main things that was attractive to us about a home compostable packaging was that people could dispose of it themselves in their own backyard perfectly safely, and in fact it would become valuable compost for them to then use to grow more plants. Soft plastics, the scheme is fantastic, but unfortunately the statistics around how much is actually being recycled in terms of soft plastics are still pretty woeful. It's less than 1%, and our research suggests that over 20% of households have access to home compost, so we think there's a much greater chance of our packaging being disposed of properly, or at least not ending up in landfill, than traditional soft plastics.
How did you find this product, or did you create the product, or did you find it?
Yeah, look, we went on a journey. We actually didn't start looking for a compostable product. We went out there looking for the most sustainable option. And where we started and where we finished are two quite different places. It was a real journey of knowledge. We really had to dig deep and really unravel this industry. It's quite a complicated industry, and I think there's a lot of terminology out there. There's a lot of greenwashing that we sort of had to work our way through. And we just searched the world and looked for different people doing different things and different suppliers. The first product that we landed on was this beautiful, amazing product that we have launched with, called the Zero Pack. And it's made of calcium carbonate, and it's in this incredible process. All stages of the life cycle are incredible, from manufacturing to production to the use and end of life. One of the things that really appealed to us about this product was that it was recyclable. And so we went and did our research and went to check out the recycling industry, and to make sure that while it was saying that it was recyclable, that it would actually end up being recycled.
Yeah.
And what we found out when we did that was that it wasn't going to be. And not because it couldn't, but because the industry is broken. And products, it just didn't look like your typical milk bottle or yogurt container, and so it wasn't going to be recycled. So that's when we went back to the drawing board and started to look into compostable products, because they were the best option available at that point in time.
It's interesting you should say that. I just watched a TV show where the guy was in Asia, and he was an English presenter, and he was in Asia, and he just happened to be, in fact, I have a bad feeling it might have been something like Top Gear. And they pulled up by the side of the road, and there was a Tesco's bag there. Now, Tesco is a UK grocery brand. It is not in Asia. And that was when he went on a little bit of a journey to discover all of this plastic that was getting recycled was actually just being dumped in third world countries, and nobody was doing anything with it. So it becomes quite difficult from the consumer's point of view, because you think you're doing the right thing, but then the powers that be, the governments, they're actually letting us all down.
Yeah, a lot of the systems are fundamentally broken, and the economics just don't stack up when it comes to recycling a lot of these materials. And that's just the harsh reality at the moment. Until plastic gets taxed or becomes extremely expensive, maybe oil prices will go through the roof at some point.
Certainly not right now.
No, exactly. It's one of the worst things to, coronavirus has had its benefits the environment, but that sure won't be one of them. But yeah, until plastic becomes more expensive, then it won't be worth recycling it. And until it's, the economics just...
or we need to be taking responsibility, and that's packaging providers, of what we're making, and making sure that they're disposed of correctly at end of life, and placing a value on that packaging, which certainly isn't happening at the moment.
No, I think you're right there. So the journey into compostable packaging, I mean, I can't imagine how you even start doing that. So tell us a little bit about how, once you've realized that plastic isn't going to be, recyclable plastic is not going to be what you're looking for, how do you start this journey to find compostable packaging? Because even from a retailer's point of view, trying to find those kinds of products are extremely difficult. You guys were trying to manufacture them, so I imagine that must have been a million times harder.
Yeah, look, it certainly wasn't easy, but we knew that people had made plastic shopping bags and bin liners out of a product that was home compostable, a plastic-like product. And so we just asked the question, could it be made into a courier satchel instead? And of course, there's all sorts of issues and potential issues that go alongside that we had to work through. What the most important thing was to us, and it should be to anyone sourcing compostable packaging, is that it meets the certifications. And it was important to us that it met the Australasian certification, which is, it's called the AS5810, and it includes a worm toxicity test. And what that certification or that test does is it says that a certain material is home compostable up to a certain weight, or it's measured in a certain thickness. And so what we needed was a material that was, could be thick enough to be a courier satchel, but still be certified home compostable. And that was a key challenge. And then there's, will labels stick well enough to it? How are the seals? Are the seams strong enough? All of those things was actually quite an extensive process to go through to get right.
So I use those home compostable bags in my compost bin because, to be honest, my family suck at emptying the compost bin. So at least if I have the bag, I can tie it up and leave it on the bench, and somebody, usually me, ends up taking it out. What I found is that, and probably because they're holding quite wet ingredients, is they quite often fall apart really, really quickly. Sometimes within 2 days, they're starting to fall apart. So how have you navigated that? How have you managed, and you don't have to give away any intellectual property, but how have you managed to build something that is rigid enough and rugged enough to go through the postal system? Because we all know the postal system is not easy on parcels. And like you said, have the seams not split, and have the glue be worm friendly. And still come out to be a viable product for people to buy.
Well, I guess the most obvious thing is that they are a lot thicker than those bags. So, one of those bags will typically be 25 to 30 whereas our bags are twice that almost for some. So that's the main thing. They're just thicker and stronger. But I always find it quite reassuring when that happens to those really thin bags, because it means the process is working.
It's working, right? Yeah.
They've been exposed to a bit of moisture and a bit of yuckiness, and they're really starting to break down.
Yeah, I always open the compost bin and I'm like, that one's been in there for about a week and it's nearly gone.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, well, our bags make really good compost bin liners as well.
Do you promote that? I would
not to purchase them, but when you receive them, and if you're not reusing them, or they can't be reused, they're a really good bin liner, and they'll last a little bit longer.
A little bit longer than my
you might get a couple of weeks out of them. Although we've used them as pot plant holders, and we've sort of noticed after a couple of weeks that the bottoms are starting to get a bit.
I do have to worry though, if I put those in my compost bin, the family would never empty it. So tell me, how have you taken this? Because how long have you been around for?
Just over 2 years.
Yeah, that's what I thought. How have you taken this message to retailers, and how have they been receiving it?
Oh, look, the response we've had has been absolutely phenomenal. We launched the Better Packaging over 2 years ago, but we actually didn't launch our first product until July. So it's about just over 18 months ago now. And right from the beginning, we just had this incredible response. We sold out within a couple of weeks, that first order, and then we doubled and placed another order, and that sold out within weeks as well. And people have the response we've had and what we hear from our customers is just so heartening to see, that people were looking for these solutions and they're just so happy to find them. And, if you replace something with something sustainable that works and is a direct replica, people pick it up and they run with it, and they are really grateful that you're doing that as well.
Mm.
So how does the pricing stand up?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Just to your point earlier, you were talking about your personal experience running a business, and that's very much the feedback that we get from our retailers, is that they've put so much effort into making a beautiful product to then have to put it in a plastic bag. There's guilt associated with that, there's disappointment, and there's kind of just this, yuck feeling. So how they feel now is instead extremely proud and happy to be able to send it in something that will protect it and keep it safe, but also won't have nearly as great an impact on the environment.
So how do they stack up monetary wise? Like in terms of a regular courier satchel versus your satchel, how much extra, and I'm going to assume it's going to be a little bit extra because we need to pay to be able to have these products that are better for the environment. How does the pricing stack up? If you're a retailer and you have to make this decision, what is it coming down to?
Yeah, look, I think that depends on the size of the retailer. From the very first day, pretty much, that we launched, we decided that we would make our packaging available to customers of all sizes. So we started selling them in packs of 100 on our website. And that was never going to be sort of a major side of the business, but it actually has been one of our fastest growing sides. And for those customers that are sort of selling maybe 400 parcels a month, sending 400 parcels a month, I think the prices are quite similar to what you might get if you were going to buy the packaging from Office Max or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Those larger customers that are ordering, tens or hundreds of thousands of bags every year, where they're probably going direct to source to get their plastic packaging, that the prices, you really start to see the difference in pricing.
Mm-hmm.
It can get up to twice the price.
Right.
So that's why we really do applaud those customers, especially those larger customers who come on board, because they really are making quite a big investment to go sustainable.
So if it is comparable, because the people who are listening to this podcast aren't necessarily enterprise customers, they are people with 6 and 7 figure businesses. And it sounds like that's the kind of person that buys your product anyway. If the price is very negligible in terms of traditional plastic packaging, why are more people not doing this?
Well, maybe they don't know about it yet. We have done no traditional marketing. We've relied on word of mouth, mostly through social media, to grow. We find that's it just feels like a genuine way to grow for us. So that could be the case. And look, if you walk into Office Max or Officeworks in Australia, they're not on the shelf there yet.
Why? Okay, that's the next question is, why can't I buy it there?
They're going through their own decision-making processes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. There is a strong movement towards plastics and trying to get plastics recycled.
Right.
And that seems to be where some of those more mainstream, players, their heads are at.
Do you think there's politics involved?
I don't know if it's necessarily politics. I think a lot of it does come down to cost as well. And look, we fully support the soft plastics recycling scheme. We think they're doing amazing work, and we applaud them. But when we see the numbers that 30% of plastic ends up in the environment, and less than a percentage of soft plastics end up being recycled, and what they're being recycled back into is not their original self, so they're not getting recycled back into a courier satchel or a film. We know that the industry is broken, so we see this as the best option at this point in time, but we do believe that will change, and we hope it changes.
Yeah, and look, it's still a really new industry. We were the first ones to commercialise this product. We're not a large multinational. We don't have those supply lines, and those existing relationships with some of those large, retailers or outlets. So, there's all that to
navigate. Yeah, because like you said, you've only been in business 2 years, and I'm really surprised. Like, I have to say, huge kudos to you, because I pay an extortionate amount of money for compostable bags for our garbage bin and those home compostable bags for our compost bin. Traditionally, I mean, I can buy a packet of 30 garbage bags for $1.50, but I'm paying $4 or $5 for the stuff that's made that will actually not biodegrade, but is actually compostable and made from plant-based materials, because that's how I feel I can make that little bit of change to the environment. But I really do hope that more people get on board and support companies like yours, because I mean, we will always have plastic for a very, very long time, but it's just like energy. We need to be looking at the way we use it. And recycling soft plastics isn't easy. Like, we have to have a huge big bag that we then take to the supermarket, and it sits in somebody's car for 3 weeks before they actually remember to take it out and stick it in one of those giant bins, which is always overflowing. So, and I guess just like recycling back in the day, you used to have to take it to like a bottle bin. So we've generally moved. Yeah, it takes time to move, but I don't think we have a choice when it comes to what's happening to the environment. I think you guys are on the forefront of becoming a huge industry.
Absolutely, and there are applications where plastic is the best material, and soft plastic is. Our packaging isn't yet completely airtight. It breathes somewhat, so it can't be used to package some biscuits or or crackers yet. But in applications where it doesn't matter if something breathes, or if oxygen gets through the barrier, then to us it's just a no-brainer.
So is it just the courier satchels that you do?
No.
Oh, tell me more.
We've been busy in our 2 years. We have compostable bubble bags. So the little bubble mailers, which are really, really cute and neat. And we also have poly bags. So the garment bags that pretty much every item of clothing that's ever been made comes in.
Yeah.
So we sell those. We've also got Ziploc bags, so like little lunch bags or stationery bags that you might use. We have compostable labels. We've got flow wrap for magazines, and we've actually got pallet wrap coming out, and we've got hygiene stickers.
Wow, that is amazing. Great work, guys.
Yeah, we love there's so much that we can do. There's so many applications, and it's just making sure that we do our due diligence and release them in a timely manner, and just make sure that everything stacks up before we release a new product.
So how do you think online shopping and e-commerce in general is going to change post-COVID? A lot more people have been exposed to e-commerce, and I know a lot of retailers have had to, like traditional bricks and mortar retailers have had to speed up their e-commerce journey, and e-commerce store owners have seen an influx. Well, some situations have seen an influx. So how do you think that influx in e-commerce is going to affect brands like yours?
Well, we'd like to think it.
We're going to freeze.
We can edit that out. Do you want to take over, Rebecca, then?
So what was it? How e-commerce? Look, I think e-commerce is here to stay in a big way. COVID has done incredible things for the e-commerce industry. I think Australia Post has seen, its largest 3 weeks since pre-Christmas. So the sales that we're seeing online, and it's not just, as you mentioned, there's so many different businesses going online. Gourmet restaurants are now starting to sell Neil's and the local chemist who you probably went and picked up your prescription from is jumping online. And I think there's different groups, that haven't always shopped online now have had to shop online. And so I think it has really opened up that industry. And I don't think those changes will go away in a hurry.
And how are you going to make sure that those people are using your packaging?
It's a really great question. Look, we're just trying to reach as many different customers as possible and spread our message. And just through talking to you and different channels.
Mm-hmm. So you're in New Zealand. I know that you ship to Australia. Do you ship internationally as well? Can people in the US and the UK buy your products?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we very early on we decided that we would ship to anybody anywhere in the world, regardless of where they were, as we just felt it wasn't right to say no to anyone wanting sustainable packaging. People thought we were quite crazy because quite a lot of those orders we actually lost money on, but it actually worked in our favour, because what it showed us was it showed us those different areas. And so what we've done is, as the demand's grown in a certain area, we've been able to set up warehousing there. So we actually have warehousing in the UK, the USA, China, New Zealand and Australia, and that enables us now to service pretty much about 85% of the global market from a really good distance, which makes things more sustainable, and it makes it quite cost effective. So we're really starting to see, our sales in the US and the UK take off.
Yeah, congratulations, guys. You've done such a fantastic job. And I know we talked about before innovation, and you guys are clearly innovators, but you told me that you'd made just some little tweaks to those e-tail bags that meant that they could be used again. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, so it seems like such a no-brainer to us, but a traditional satchel doesn't indicate where you should cut it on the seal to make sure that you can use it again. So we just put a really simple cut line across the seal with a little pair of scissors, and that's enough just to trigger in someone's mind. It's like, oh, if I don't just rip into this willy-nilly, through the side, however I can get in, but actually grab a pair of scissors and cut here, I might be able to reuse this bag. And we've seen huge reuse rates just from that really simple design addition. Bex and I believe that, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but that waste is a design flaw. And so we've got a very strong design culture within the business, how we ask how things are designed, how they could be designed better, to be reused more and more times, to use less resources in the process, and we find that fun. That's the challenge, and we love rising to that.
I just had this thought, which is, do your retailers, or do you have conversations about them? Do they actually convey that the bags are compostable to their customers, or is it really clear on the bag? Like when a customer receives the parcel and we cut along the line, how do we know? It's really clear.
Really clear. And that's actually some of the feedback that we get from our customers, is that they love our product because it is so clear. And it's on the front, they say, in big white letters on a beautiful matte black bag, it says, I'm a compost pack. And on the back, again, really loud and proud, it says, I'm a real dirt bag. There's the big AS 5810, that certification that I mentioned earlier. It has a symbol associated with it, which is like a compost bin. We have that symbol on the back. And then we have instructions that are written in a fun and engaging way about how to pop them in with your food scraps and garden waste, and that they're not for the recycling, because we don't want them to end up in soft plastics recycling. They shouldn't end up there. They do need to go into a composting.
Sorry, Kate. Yeah, it was education and communication was a really big part of what we wanted to do, and as a part of this company and our journey, because as I mentioned earlier on, we went on such a big journey, and I thought I was quite sustainably minded and knew a lot. But we realised that there was so much misinformation out there. So it was really important to us that we communicate what we're learning and do that in a really fun and informative way. So that's a big part of our mission, is to start a revolution and get people thinking about where they're putting things and where, should you be recycling things, and do you need that extra layer of packaging, and just to really start thinking about that.
Well, I think that they are just the bomb, and I have just started a new e-commerce business selling luxury, where we're making them here in Sydney. As we're recording this, we're still mid-COVID, but post, when we can all actually get back to work, my sewing team will be back in action, and we're making luxury greyhound coats, and I will be ordering some better packaging satchels to send those out, because I really do believe that consumers, the majority of consumers, are ethically minded, and it's so much easier to get people to feel excited about sustainability when they don't have to do anything. They just have to buy your product, and when it turns up in that compostable bag, they feel like they've done something.
Absolutely. Selena, we'd love to send you some packaging. So
thank you guys.
Let us know and we'll send you some to get you started. Absolutely.
Thank you. Now, for all of those people who are listening who have made the decision that today is the day, once they run out of their existing plastic e-commerce bags, they're going to move on over to your stuff, where can they find you guys?
Yeah, the best place is on our website, so betterpackaging.com, or they can email us at hello@betterpackaging.com, and we'd love to send them a sample pack or a free trial pack to get them going and get them using better packaging.
And it sounds like there's really no excuse to not move over to compostable packaging. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for what you're doing for the environment. Makes me super proud to have you guys on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.